It is time now for our Sheriff Sit Down, presented by our great friends at our Community Credit Union. Morning, Sheriff.
Morning.
We are in the midst of not only the holiday season, and we've got a lot of stories these days of porch pirates and people taking stuff off this. Let's go through a couple of holiday-related issues today. So when it comes to these porch pirates and things like that, law enforcement is the first one you call. Do you call the post office if you think you've been checking your tracking numbers and things like this, or
if you have the ability to have it go somewhere where you know it's secure is the best thing.
Yeah,
we do get calls on that, and as you see, many of the
he's just got to move it a little bit.
Have you seen many of these things on TV that you're seeing every day where the UPS guy pulls in and pulls out of the driveway and somebody else pulls in and walks up, grabs his stuff and leaves, and there's so many of it, there's no way for the police to cover all those in any state. I mean, there's just, you're getting hundreds and hundreds of packages delivered a day here. We don't have hundreds and hundreds of deputies to follow a UPS truck, so having those things go to a secure location, I think we talked last time, I think in Belfair somewhere, there's one of the places up there's an Amazon secure thing where they drop them there and you can go in and recover your packages and things. But maybe cameras on your house and stuff like that are helpful. Maybe have them sent to your neighbor's house if they're home during the day, something along that line.
How do those Ring doorbells come into play with the resolution? I mean, you see the resolution on them. It's not the fuzzy cameras of 10 years ago. I mean, you can really maybe even catch a license plate. Is that valuable to law enforcement?
Sure. Oh, yeah, it is. If you can get a license plate, at least it gives you a great start to where that car's at, and then you start following the car around and come up with the car and come up with the driver.
I've never understood why somebody would risk a felony like this, right? Theft of mail is a felony. You don't even know half the time what's in the box. You know what I mean? You walk out of there with some dog toys or something, and you can go to jail for the.
It's a crime of opportunity. I mean, it's just people just see it as an easy way to go grab. Look at your mailboxes. I mean, a few years ago, the mail thefts really started to get and be something where people just drive around, take all your mail, look for your information, or this time of year, any cash or any items of value that might just be coming in the mailbox because it's there and it's easy.
If your stuff has been stolen from a porch pirate or whatever, and it's been a while, are there places that you should go calling? Pawn shops, check Craigslist, check Facebook Marketplace,
all those kind of things. It used to be, and I know most agencies do it now, many of the pawn shops now have stepped it up a little bit from what they did in the old days.
Sure.
They take ID on somebody bringing something in. The unscrupulous ones, especially in the old days when we'd work these cases, if there was items of jewelry stolen especially, or other larger items that are pretty easy to identify, and they wouldn't take ID and they'd sell them out of the stores. But most of the pawn shops now, police can walk in, and if they see something that they believe to be a stolen, they can put a police hold on it, and it doesn't get sold out of there until identification's made generally. And most of the shops are pretty good about that.
The other thing that I'm seeing online now are people that will try to battle a porch pirate in the sense that they'll make a fake package that may have like a fart bomb in it or a glitter explosion.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, I don't know. We'll see what it comes down to someday when somebody really gets hurt. If the courts are going to uphold that and say it was somebody taking something that they shouldn't have been taking, or if they're going to say that a person had put somebody's life in. I mean, you do something that's going to harm somebody, and I think you're going to end up with problems. Oh. I mean, seriously, you put something in there that somebody steps off the porch with and it takes their hands off or something, you're going to have issues with that, I think.
What about non-poisonous snakes?
No, I think that's going to be something that, everybody always asks for law enforcement's opinion, and things go to, everything ends up in court now.
Sure.
Everybody's going to sue somebody. And I would tell you that most often you go in there and you never know what's going to come out of those either. You never know until they reach a verdict.
Well, it's like the burglar that falls through the skylight, breaking into a home, and sues the homeowner when they get hurt. I mean, we have stories like that.
Exactly.
You never know how it's going to end up.
You'll see those things awarded. It was a few years ago, the person that, I'm not sure if I'm exact on this, but the person that sued McDonald's or one of the companies that didn't have enough apples or something in the apple pie, and they won. And then, or hot coffee was too hot. Well, I guess you never know. Anything can come up now.
It's always something. The other thing, as we move through the holidays, is it's obviously 10 9 days until Christmas, but let's see, 4 or 5 days until the first start of winter. Shortest day of the year. And it's going to be
the best day ever.
It's
get the
going to be
21st out of the way and we move forward.
And it starts getting light quick, but it is very dark early in the morning. It's very dark late at night. And add to that, Spencer's calling for an inch of rain on Wednesday and an inch and a half or so on Thursday.
Yeah.
It's making it for very not only treacherous driving, but as people are walking, and you were mentioning some things that you saw with crosswalks and things in downtown.
Yeah, right here in town. Concerning, I was in my private vehicle following a car in town, and I see it quite regularly down on First there going across. There's a crosswalk down there. Well, people will stop for somebody in the crosswalk, or oftentimes when people are trying to make a left-hand turn there, and so cars will just go right around them on the right-hand side. There's not a designated lane there. Mm-hmm. And the other day, this person starts coming to a stop, or to slow down to a stop, and there's a person walking in the crosswalk. Well, the second driver's not seeing the pedestrian in front of the car in front of him and goes around that car and just about hits this guy in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
There's not a designated lane there. You're not supposed to drive over through the parking stalls and use that as a lane, or drive around the ditch and off the fog line, leave the fog line to go around cars. It feels like, well, I shouldn't have to wait for this, and it's easy to make that, but you don't always know what's on the other side of that or what's coming across the intersection, and people are just getting antsy. And you were mentioning rain coming up. Another one, it's really big, and they used to do advertisements for car tires on this all the time, but the hydroplaning.
Yeah. People
don't realize how, when you hit on that hydroplane, what that car will do. If you ever get a chance to go up and ride the State Patrol Academy and go up to the skid pan, drive through there sometime when it's set that water, and see how a car loses traction. It's incredible.
I know, heading towards Olympia, going up the hill past the casino, Little Creek Casino, there is some real big divots in the road. Yes. Where you can do some serious hydroplaning. And so that is just you losing control. Do the front wheels lose control? The back wheels depends on the car. And then what can you do for that?
Slow down. That's the main thing. If you're not putting your car so fast and it gets up on a plane like that across the water, but if you see that coming on the freeway, start decelerating. You obviously don't want to lock up your brakes completely if you got somebody behind you, and it does. And different types of cars handle differently. If you drive a rear wheel drive car, it's constantly the rear tires are pushing the car forward. You'll watch people at stop signs on the ice, and they'll try to come to a stop, and the car's in drive. Well, if you take your foot off the brake on an automatic transmission, sitting at a complete stop, it takes off. It starts rolling. Well, if there's ice there, the back tires will start spinning, and you'll see them slide one way or the other, or they're fighting with their brakes. There's different techniques. I hate to say, and have somebody do something wrong, but going into park and going into neutral. I don't make a mistake. You go into neutral and step on your brakes and let the car brake, rather than when you come to a stop, rather than having it in gear. If you're driving a manual transmission, you're already pushing into the clutch, and it's taking that drive away from the tires. But you'll watch all kinds of things on the snow and ice, but on the rain, it's the same thing. You'll hear it every time. You hear the troopers come on here and say, "Slow down." That's the biggest thing. Slow down. It reduces the impact as well if you do end up in the ditch. But
just give yourself a few extra minutes, to get where you're going.
Give yourself a few extra minutes, and the visibility when you're talking about the rain, and a lot of people's windshield wipers aren't. They're all scratched up and marred up, and they're just leaving lines across the window, and it looks like a kaleidoscope when you're looking out through their window. And some the other one's my pet peeve, is I hate dirty windshields on the inside.
Sure.
It's that filmy stuff in there.
I hate that.
You're driving down the road at nighttime and a car's coming at you. It does. It looks like a kaleidoscope if the windshield's not clean. So, those are small things that you'd think that most people would do. But I've been in cars, and a lot of times it looks like cigarette smoke, and it's not.
It's like a haze.
It's just from comes off the
I get that in mine, and I drive my wife crazy with that when I don't keep it. I try to keep it clean, because you're right, it is a hazard when you're driving.
It's much,
I don't know what it is.
You don't notice it during the day when you're just driving along, but look, when you turn into the sun, and all of a sudden you see how
dust, build up, dead skin cells, anything gets around there.
It's the stuff that comes off the plastics in the dashes and stuff.
Yeah,
some type of stuff that comes out of the plastics anyway. But you talk about having good visibility, and in another one I always talk about this time of year, it's having your tires inflated correctly. Having good your tires correct and legal, but also having inflated to where they're correctly inflated. I see people in the wintertime don't check their tire pressures and it starts to go down, and that doesn't help. There's all those small things. You kind of think
so you guys do this all the time. You're always training and drive training. Now I took driver's ed when I was 16, and so that was 20 some odd years ago or whatever it is now. For other folks, it's even longer since happened. But what do you do? How do you go through these types of trainings? Do you watch it on YouTube now, or what do you do?
We go up and talk about the characteristics of different cars. I should have had one of my drive instructors come down here. The last 30 years, cars have changed.
Yeah.
When I first started driving the old Plymouth cars, they didn't have analog brakes. And so we were taught to do what's called threshold braking, where you're not coming all the way down the gas pedal, and you never want to lock up your brakes. You just lose your steering completely. If you can get it to a stop without, we call it threshold braking. Coming into a high-speed turn, you're getting on the brakes before the turn as best you can. But what if you have to make that hard braking? Well, now you've got analog brakes. So now the way that it's taught to come in there is use your analog braking if you have to, and it prevents your tires from locking up, and it still allows you to steer from front wheel. And then not everybody, but many cars started to go to front wheel drive many years ago, from rear wheel drive to front wheel drive. They handle differently, they turn differently. When you're driving, the characteristics are differently, and now you've gone to all wheel drive. Which again is different, and each time that our cars have progressed into that, we're running all-wheel drive cars. Most agencies are now running all-wheel drive cars, and they have completely different handling characteristics. I've got a photograph of it. Did a really neat thing last spring up the State Patrol Academy. They brought in a 1971 Dodge 440 state troopers car from 1970s, and then brought in one of the brand new cars, and drove them. And it wasn't a race contest or something, but drove them through the drive course and drove them around. And you think this big 440 motor and this police interceptor thing from the 1970s, big car. They were really neat looking. They were a thing at the time. But you put them through a drive course compared to the modern day cars, and their braking ability is not near that what the new Explorers are, the little Explorer police cars, and the handling and all the things that go into that. They change, and so you should know what car you're driving. And we do. We drive a number of times a year. Our people go through driving. Sometimes it's skills, sometimes it's backing, sometimes it's high speed, sometimes it's all of it. So every car that you have on the road, all the law enforcement people, they drive that car through. So you know that car really well and what your capabilities
Parents are so quick to make sure their kids are familiar with the cars that they're driving. They go driver's ed. They do want to make sure they're safe on the roads, but then you get a new car and it's a totally different experience. Me going from my little first car was a Toyota Tercel, tiny little thing, to now the Highlander. It is the way they handle, the weight, everything is so different.
I'll get one of the guys. I tell you, the guys that drive that every day up there at the State Patrol or the driving, we've got a number of guys that are certified driving instructors that teach these things. They're driving those things every day up there. And if you ever get the opportunity to go up and go through and ride through the drive course up there with the Washington State Troopers that teach that all day long. They're there, when you're there 8 hours a day and you're driving a car around and around and around, they're very good at it, but they can show you some things with your car that you'd be amazed. And you'd be amazed to me what a factory stock car will do. The capabilities of that car is,
way more.
A lot of people won't admit this, but it's more than what most people's capabilities.
Sure.
Your mind will let you do on the modern cars.
Well, Sheriff, good to see you. Happy holidays.
Yes.
We'll check in next week before Christmas. How's that sound?
Okay.
One more? 23rd?